Hello, travelers! I wish you a happy Halloween, and as part of our celebrations, we're going to be doing something special over here. Based on our Ko-fi poll, I am going to be doing a few videos about a little bit of the story, a little bit of the lore behind certain treats that we enjoy at this time of year. Today, the treat that we will be diving into is one of the most iconic of this spooky celebration, candy corn. Alright, yes, I know. Jeez. I admit candy corn is one of those things you either love or hate. I'm in the camp that likes it, but it does have a reputation for not being the best.
Candy corn, I think. Corn that tastes like candy. I can't wait. Son of a bitch!
Be that as it may, it is hard to think of a sweet that's more strongly associated with Halloween. It's all over imaging, it's all over commercials, it's in just about every popular show and movie that discusses the holiday. And it even has its own national day, October 30th. Getting into the story of this treat. According to the National Confectioners Association, candy corn was the invention of a candy maker by the name of George Renninger. He worked at the Wonderly Candy Company and came up with this treat around sometime in the 1880s. It was not uncommon for the time for candy companies to be mixing up slurries of mallow cream and molding it into treats in the shapes of pumpkins and other seasonal produce. What made this different was the tricolor design, which at the time was a bit of a novelty and helped it gain some attention. Eventually, this would be taken up by the Gullet's Candy Company, now more popularly known as the Jelly Belly Candy Company, which started producing and marketing it in 1898. At the time, it wasn't even known as candy corn. Instead, it was advertised as chicken feed. On the packages that the Gullet's Candy Company sold, they had a mascot of a rooster with the motto, "King of the Candy Corn Fields." In the decades that followed, especially in the 1950s, candy corn would become the dominating marketing image around Halloween, and that's why it's sort of cemented its place as the sort of de facto Halloween treat. Admittedly, the candy kernels sold on shelves, mainly by the Brach's Company, can have an off-putting, artificial syrup taste to it. I'm willing to concede this. However, it's surprisingly easy to make this confection for yourself at home, and I guarantee you it's going to be 10 times better. Following the recipe that I have here, you will get a treat that is going to have a much more marshmallowy and palatable flavor than the treats that you buy in the store. Let's gather our ingredients together and get this process started. We are going to want 1 1/4 cups of confectioner's sugar. We're going to have 6½ teaspoons of non-fat dry milk, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. With that, we also need a 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/3 cup light corn syrup, 2½ tablespoons of water, and we're also going to need 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter at room temperature. We also need a teaspoon of vanilla extract. To start, we are going to grab our confectioner's sugar, dry milk, and salt, and we're going to mix this all together in a bowl. We're going to do this until it's very well combined, and we're going to set this aside. With that done, we're going to get a small 2-quart pot, and we're going to set that over medium heat on our stove. In that, we are going to combine granulated sugar, corn syrup, and the water. We are going to mix this gently, and then we're going to cover that to let it cook and heat for 4 minutes. After that, we're going to remove our cover, we're going to add in our butter, and this is going to foam up quite a bit, so if you have any nervousness about things being at such a low level, trust me, it's going to rise up quite a bit. We are going to let this cook until it reaches 240 degrees Fahrenheit on an instrument thermometer. And this is important because this is what's known as the firm ball stage. In candy making, the firm ball stage is the temperature at which sugar forms into a more solid mass, and it's the temperature that's used for things like caramels. Once it reaches that 240 degree mark, we are going to remove it from the heat. We're going to add our vanilla and our mixed together sugar and dry milk. We're going to stir that together with a spatula, and then we're going to pour this out into a prepped, either you can use a half pan baking sheet, or I here have a standard baking glass here. Make sure that it is lined either with greased tinfoil. I personally prefer parchment paper. We are going to let this cool until it is cool enough for us to handle, which should be around 10 to 15 minutes. We are going to divide our dough into 3 equal pieces. One of these pieces we're going to set aside. It's going to remain white, so it's not going to be tampered with. And then one is going to be dyed yellow and the other orange. To do this, we're going to add 2 to 3 drops of food coloring gel, and then we're going to mix this together. Personally, the way I like to do this is I like to use my hands to fold and roll the pieces together. I find this works a little bit better. But for this, I recommend using gloves. This will prevent getting dye on your hands and also helps with the potential stickiness of the dough itself. Once we have that, we're going to get a large piece of parchment paper weighted down on a surface. We're going to use this for the same reason that we let this cool on the parchment paper in the pan. It's going to help with the stickiness, because if you try to roll this out on a regular surface, it's going to stick quite a bit. I find it's just a little tip that I think personally helps. We're going to roll each of our pieces of dough out until they're about 1.5 feet long, then we're going to cut them in half. And then we're going to roll them out again until we get strands that are about 1/2 inch thick. We're going to do this for every color, and we're going to line them up and gently press them together. Using a knife or a bench scraper, we are going to cut this out into little wedges. That's going to give us our kernels. Once our pieces are cut, they're going to need about another hour to dry, and then they can be stored in an airtight container. I recommend setting them out in like even layers, and then adding a sheet of parchment paper between them, and then stacking them more and more. And there we go. A nice homemade sweet treat, perfect for the holidays. I know candy corn is not most people's favorite out there, but I implore those who are skeptics, those who have hated before, to try this. Try it at least once, and maybe I can convince you. Because, like I said, this is going to have a much more marshmallowy, a much tastier flavor than most of the things that you're going to find in the grocery store. That little bit of salt over there works wonders with this. It's an act. I honestly sometimes have to lock this stuff away in order to prevent myself from just getting fat on it. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful spooky holiday, and we'll be back again to talk about another of these special treats that is tied to this time of year. For now, take care, and I hope to see you back here at the Hungry Shark Tavern.